Every book of the Bible has been calibrated. All of the great songs have been calibrated. The calibration goes like this. Over here to my left is a calibration of 0. And as far as I can go on this stage, let's say up to the speaker, represents 1,000. The energy level of 1,000 to here. All right? Now, anything that goes up to number 200 on this scale that I'm just arbitrarily giving to you, let's say 200 is right here, represents something called force. And every thought and every emotion that you have that calibrates between 0 and 200 is a thought or an emotion that weakens you in one way or another and lowers the energy field. And those calibrations, those thoughts, I'll give you the number 20 is the lowest, and the thought is shame. And this, by the way, is a 29-year study that was conducted over almost his entire professional lifetime. This is a medical doctor and a PhD researcher as well. At 30, we're moving up now. 30 is guilt, 50 is apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, until we reach approximately 200. Now, every energy that is below 200 is an energy that when you have that thought, the thoughts of humiliation, of blame, of despair, of anxiety, of hatred, of scorn, any of these kinds of thoughts, these thoughts are in what he calls force. And whenever you use force as a way of communicating, a way of talking, a way of being, you create, the problem is that we create a counterforce. And that people who calibrate below 200 in their lives, and anyone can be calibrated at any time. Even photographs can be calibrated. The photograph on the cover of A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem calibrates around 580. And it was a picture that was taken in Assisi after just an astonishing miracle had happened in my life. You have to, it's almost like I said yesterday, you have to willingly suspend your disbelief. You have to do a somersault into the inconceivable and allow yourself to open up to the possibility that every thought that you have and every emotion that you have and every internal experience that you have has an impact not only on you, but as I'll demonstrate to you in a few moments, on everyone that you encounter in your life and everything that you encounter in your life and whatever energy field that you radiate to. So we're talking 0 to 200, but this scale isn't a scale that is consistent all the way through. When you get to a number of 600, which represents extremely high energy, you were talking about maybe a few thousand people on the entire planet, Earth, today, out of the 6 billion or so of us who reach this level of consciousness of 600. When we're talking about moving into 700 and 800, we're talking about the greatest spiritual masters who've ever walked among us. People who live at the level of the ineffable, who are unconditional love, and have what Patanjali says, he said, when you become steadfast in your abstention of thoughts of harm directed toward others, listen to that again, when you become steadfast in your thoughts of harm directed toward others, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in your presence. If you're steadfast in abstaining from a thought of harm and never ever have a thought of harm or judgment directed toward others, because you have to know that when you judge another, you do not define them. You define yourself as someone who needs to judge. Calling someone else stupid or foolish or evil or whatever does not make them that. That just says something about you who needs to put those kind of labels on other people. So that if you can become steadfast and become an individual who never, but never has a thought of harm directed toward others or judgment, which is almost impossible for all of us who live at these ego levels that we've been conditioned to live at. But if you can conceive of yourself as being someone like that, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in your presence. St. Francis of Assisi is someone who calibrated in the 900s. Maybe 7 or 8 people in the history of the world have calibrated above 950. Francesco's, in fact, the city just to the north of us, about 40 miles, was named after this little man, St. Francis, who left his worldly belongings behind and just took out to save the church. And he spent the last 2 years of his life up in a place that I visited with my wife a few years ago when I took a group of people to Assisi at Mount Suribasso. And the last 2 years of his life, he had to have his hands and his feet and his side bound so that he didn't bleed to death. Such was the energy level of this being. Hawkins suggests that any person who calibrates at 600 or higher, Mother Teresa calibrated at 600. When Mother Teresa walked into a radio studio where I was on the radio that morning, everyone in the room felt her presence. She weighed about 90 pounds. It's about 4'10". And she radiated out a different kind of an energy. And he suggests in Power versus Force, with his academic and research background, that anyone who can raise their calibration level to the level of 600 or higher, everyone in that energy field is automatically healed. Disease cannot survive when you are around that kind of energy. They said of Jesus, his presence in the village and nothing more would raise the consciousness of those around him. He suggests that only one person in the history of humanity has ever reached this level of 1,000, and that was Jesus of Nazareth.
Whenever you're about to act, to do anything, if you have any conflict at all, you can ask yourself the question, is what I'm about to say, is what I'm about to do going to bring me peace, more peace in my life, or is it going to bring a sense of turmoil? Is there going to be some struggle, some anxiety as a result of what I'm going to say or what I'm going to do? If the answer is peace, then it's your highest self. If the answer is turmoil, struggle, anxiety, stress, then the answer is your ego. So now you've identified, and now you know how to act. The way to act is with the way that will bring you peace. Even if it seems inconsistent, the way to act is the way that will bring you peace. The second thing to do is to start to learn to go beyond this restriction that you've experienced in the physical plane. The restrictions of the physical plane are many. Begin to say, I can transcend that, and your mind begin to look at yourself as living in that physical plane, but that's not who you are. So figure out ways in your own consciousness to just get past all of these limitations that are a part of your body and your world. The third is, wherever you go, refuse to defend yourself to anyone or to anything on the earth plane. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to prove yourself. You can just quietly be an effective human being and not get yourself into that position where you're arguing with someone over the rightness of how you feel. Just let go of that. And the higher part of you is saying, I want peace. I want peace. It's always there. Keep that in mind. And finally, learn to surrender and to trust in that wisdom that created you. The act of surrendering is letting go, detaching yourself from all of the beliefs that you have that it's important for you to be right and it's important for you to prove other people wrong and all of these kinds of things that keep you sort of in that restriction. Once you surrender and once you let go, you find yourself a whole lot freer in your life. To understand that you have a higher self and to know it and be aware of it is one thing, but to trust in it is quite something else. And the ways to put this principle into practice are, first of all, to keep in mind that you cannot go to a higher ground if you're hanging on to a lower level. That in order to get yourself to a higher place, a place of trust, you have to somehow recognize that all of the stuff that's going on in your life in a lower place is something you have to let go of. You have to trust that when you do let go, you're not going to be falling into the abyss. And I would recommend that you take a real rebellious attitude toward the philosophy which preaches that that you are not connected to the divine energy, that somehow this force that has many names is something that is outside of you, and you're not deserving of it. Until you know that you can trust in it, you can't use it and acknowledge it in your life. One of the things to do to practice this trust is to take the most serious problem that you have and turn it over to God. Affirm to yourself, I would like to show my trust in the divine force by simply turning my problems over to your divine hands. I can remember doing this with some of the things that I really struggled with at one time in my life, things that I just thought I couldn't get past. I remember going through relationship difficulties. I remember going through problems with drinking and things like this, where it just seemed like I wanted to get past it, and I just didn't know quite what to do. I can remember times when I would be stuck in my writing and not sure whether I could, and I would just stop and I would just say, all right, I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust. I'm going to surrender. And this concept of surrender is very, very important. So when you do this, it's just that simple act of getting down on your knees and staying there on your knees and just say, okay, I'm going to turn this over to something that is higher within myself. And the ego seems to go away, and the solution seems to be there for you. The presence of complete trust is evident in your life when you start to think and feel and do are all balanced and they're all in harmony. This is called congruence. If you're congruent, your thoughts and your feelings and your behavior are all in harmony. If you're incongruent, you have one thought about, gee, I'd like to be able to do this, but then you feel another way about it, and then you act in a completely different way. And this is the cause of most of the struggles in our life, and it's also the thing that impedes the free flow of the divine force into your life. You have to trust in yourself. When you're trusting in yourself, you're trusting in this very wisdom that is the source of your life. And when you are congruent within and are feeling congruent, you are also beginning to act congruent. So work on congruency and look at the areas in your life in which you feel yourself to be incongruent. What do I think about this, and how do I feel, and how do I act? And try to bring them into harmony. And you'll start accessing this trust that is absolutely essential to the manifesting process. And of course, as always, you have to begin a meditation practice of contemplating the supreme principle which is beyond the pettiness of this world. And as you meditate and go within and you make conscious contact with God, God isn't something that you know about any longer. God is something that you know directly and personally. And once you have this direct conscious contact, this knowing, then trust is not anything that you'll ever have to work on again.
This is one of my most favorite quotes from The Power of Awareness. That which you feel yourself to be, you are. And you are given that which you are. So assume the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of your wish. And your wish must be realized. So live in the feeling of being the one you want to be, and that you shall be. Every feeling makes a subconscious impression. And unless it is counteracted by a more powerful feeling of an opposite nature, it must be expressed. Your feelings are different from your thoughts. Your feelings are what you experience in your body. The dominant of two feelings is the one expressed. I am healthy is a stronger feeling than I will be healthy. I am healthy says I feel healthy, and I feel healthy. I feel great. I don't determine if I am well on the basis of what it says on a piece of paper or on the basis of what somebody else out there tells me. I live my life feeling within my body that I am strong, I am capable, I am able. And that is not just something that I say. It's not just an affirmation. An affirmation is an intellectual exercise. This is a spiritual knowing within that I am well, I am content, I am prosperous. But the words that Neville used there are the subconscious. Every feeling that you have makes a subconscious impression upon your body and upon your awareness. Now, you need to understand the subconscious mind of yours. Your subconscious mind rules your life.
96 to 97% of everything that you do is done as a result of your subconscious mind. And when your subconscious mind gets programmed, it goes ahead and responds to whatever it is your conscious mind has placed into it. I was 18 years old. I was in the United States Navy for 4 years. And they sent me to a school in Bainbridge, Maryland, to become a radioman and a cryptographer. And we spent an hour a day, every day, for the first 3 or 4 weeks we were there, on a typewriter, learning Morse code. Okay? And my conscious mind had to program my subconscious mind. Now, this subconscious mind of yours is operating all the time. You're sitting here watching a television show. You got up, you picked up your remote control, you turned the channel on, you got dressed, you ate lunch, you went to the bathroom, you go to work, you get into your car, you drive to work, you don't think about what I'm going to do. Everything that is going on in your life, everybody in here in this room, you got here through your subconscious mind. You didn't have to think about every single thing that you were doing, but there was a time when you did in order to learn that. This habitual subconscious mind of yours rules your life. So I'm 18 years old, I'm taking Morse code. Here's the alphabet, a little bit of it anyway. Da da did it, da da did, da da did da did, da da did it, da 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 did, da 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 did, da 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 did. That's A through P. Check it out. That's 53 years ago. And my subconscious mind is still keeping track of the da 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 da. You're doing the same thing, only you don't use Morse code, but you've programmed your subconscious mind with did-it-it, da-da-dit, I can't do that, did-it-it, da-da-dat, I'm not very attractive, did-it-it, da-da-dat, I'm overweight, did-it-it, da-da-da, da-did-it-da, I can't make things happen, and it's did-it-it, da-da-dit, da-da-da, it's still there, 53 years later, and you go through your life with this subconscious programming with an awareness that you are not in charge. You're not able to extend or transcend this way of thinking. This subconscious mind of yours is most impacted by your feelings. A change of feeling is a change of destiny. A change of feeling is a change of destiny. Write it down. Stick it on the wall next to your bed. If you came into where I sleep, you would see that. I look at that all the time. I want to practice putting into my subconscious mind the assumption of the feeling of what it is that I would like to attract into my life as if it already existed, and to feel it, not just to think it, but to feel it. Neville's law of assumption says this: if this assumption about what you would like to become is persisted in until it becomes your dominant feeling, the attainment of your ideal is absolutely inevitable. You must first assume the feeling of a wish fulfilled in all aspects of your life. So you have to say to yourself, what does it feel like to be prosperous? What does it feel like to be content? What does it feel like to be well? The softer you are, the less rigid you are, the more flexible you are as a person, the more you can accomplish. And this is a great way to practice in parenting as well. And this idea that a rigid thought, how many times have you heard this idea that if I tell you something, I'm going to stay consistent with it? We have a set of rules, these are the rules, and we'll do it this way. In the Tao it says the more rules you make, the more rule breakers you create. It's true. The more rules you have in your house about how everything has to go. We had in our house, my wife would have a big jar of M&Ms. peanuts, all these different multicolored ones. And the kids in our house, because we didn't feed them sugar and we didn't give them sodas and stuff like that, so they were just more like a decoration. Every once in a while someone would take them. They'd hardly ever be replaced. Now when we had kids come over to our house who weren't ever allowed to have such horrible things, you should have seen their behavior. They would scoop them up, they'd be putting them in their pockets, and they'd get their purses, and they'd open it up, and, the whole thing would be empty. I'd say, well, what are you doing? He said, well, you mean you could just have these whenever you want them? I said, well, we don't really have any rules about that. It's just, it's not something that we encourage or discourage. It's just there. It's like Emerson had a wonderful line. He said, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. A foolish consistency, a rigid consistency. So that there are many people who will say, if I say it on Monday, you can be absolutely certain that on Wednesday I'm going to believe the same thing, regardless of what might happen on Tuesday. Now Tuesday might have something real that you might want to be changing your mind. You might want to say, I thought that this time, but now I've seen this, and now we can shift. And you can see how this can become and so much about the Tao is on leadership. Leadership in the family, leadership in the community, leadership geopolitically. Less rigidity, more openness, more willingness to listen and say, I changed my mind. Because a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. And what I believed on Wednesday has changed because of what happened on Tuesday. Now, another important thing to say to your children, to your friends, to your lover, to your spouses, to whomever, to the people you work with, words that we're so terrified to say, but which give us a sense of living with the Tao. I don't know. I don't know. I'll look it up. Say it. I don't know. Doesn't hurt. Say it again. I don't know. Isn't it fearful? I mean, so many people, and it's like very freeing, because my kids ask me something, and I say, I don't know. They say, Dad, you know everything. You know everything. I say, well, I don't know that, and I'll look it up, or we'll try to find an answer to that, but I don't quite know. I know that I spent 20 years running, and I ran every day for 20 years, for 22 years, without missing a day. 8 miles. Never missed a day. That's rigid, all right? Some call that obsessive. But you brush your teeth every day, I used to say, and you don't call that obsessive. And you go to the bathroom every day, and you don't say, well, he's obsessively doing that again today. You don't do that. But anyway, what I learned is that even in the world of exercise, there are certain things that are built in to make us rigid, to make us stiff, to make us hard. And we lift, and we run, and we kick, and this is what we call working out. There's another kind of working out that is ancient. It goes back to the time of Lao Tzu and before, which is called yoga. And yoga means union. It means union with your source. And when you do yoga, you can stay in the same place. You can do the equivalent of 8 miles. When I used to run 8 miles, I had to run 4 miles that way, turn around, 4 miles back. And I'd be sweating. Now I can do yoga, and I can just stand in one place. And in 90 minutes, by being supple, by making myself stretch, by not being hard and rigid, I can get that out there. I can get that leg up. I can do these kinds of things. And 90 minutes later, it's like I'm totally sweating, and I feel so different. I used to, when I would go out at night to eat or something, after running so many miles, running marathons and doing those things, I'd go to get up, and it would be, okay, it's going to take a little while, because everything was so. That doesn't happen anymore, because I've given up hard. I've given up being rigid and substituted it for being supple, for being flexible, for living a life in which I don't have to always be so fierce. Listen to this verse of the Tao Te Ching. It's one of my all-time favorites, verse number 76. A man is born gentle and weak. At his death, he becomes hard and stiff. All things, including the grass and the trees, are soft and pliable in life. dry, and brittle in death. Stiffness is thus a companion in death. Flexibility is a companion in life. And it's not just for how you exercise, it's how you think. How you think.